Sometimes, the ache in the heart is not a wound to be feared, but a map, the oldest kind, drawn not on paper, but inside you, pointing, always, towards somewhere you have not yet been, but somehow already know. Tonight, we are going to follow it. If you're lying down right now, you're already most of the way there. You have already done the hardest part of this day. You have carried it all the way to here, to this room, to this quiet, to this particular darkness. And now, you can set it down, not because it doesn't matter, but because it will still be there in the morning, if it needs to be. And tonight, it does not need to be held by you. Let the bed hold you instead. If you are lying down right now, you're already most of the way there. You have already done the hardest part of this day. You have carried it all the way to here, to this room, to this quiet, to this particular darkness. And now you can set it down, not because it doesn't matter, but because it will still be there in the morning, if it needs to be. And tonight it does not need to be held by you. Let the bed hold you instead. Feel the weight of that for a moment, the actual weight of your body settling, the way your shoulders find the surface beneath them, the way the backs of your legs, the backs of your arms, the long line of your spine, all of it can release just slightly downward. Not a dramatic letting go, just the way a hand opens when it no longer needs to grip anything. Gradually, without effort. There is no effort required here. If your mind is still moving, still sorting through the hours, replaying something said, something not said, running a list that has no end tonight, that is all right. We are not going to fight it. We are simply going to give it somewhere else to go. A story, an old one, quiet as water. But first, just a moment more with yourself. Take one breath that is a little deeper than the ones you have been taking. Not forced, just a little more room than usual. A small expansion in the chest, a slight widening of the ribs. Hold it for just a breath's worth of time. And then let it go slowly, not all at once. Let it leave you the way evening light leaves a room, gradually, unhurried, until you realize it has gone. And with it, some small measure of the day. Again, if you like. Another breath, a little deeper, feeling your belly rise just slightly on the inhale, and then the slow fall of the exhale, the body softening a degree further into whatever it is resting against. You are already slower than you were a minute ago. Your hands, if you pay attention to them, are they still holding something? Even now, even lying here, sometimes the hands hold. Sometimes the jaw holds. Sometimes it is the space between the eyebrows that forgets to release. See if you can let those places go a little. Not by trying to relax them. Trying tends to produce the opposite, just by noticing them. The way you might notice a door that has been left slightly open, you don't need to force it. You just notice, and it swings a little more on its own. The room you are in has a sound. Spend a moment just listening to it. Whatever it is, a hum of something distant, the small sounds of a house settling into the night, the particular quality of silence that is not quite silence at all. You have been in this room before. You have heard the sounds. They are safe sounds, background sounds, the sounds of the ordinary world continuing on without your management. It does not need you right now. Outside, the night is doing what it does. The air is cooler than it was. Things have slowed. The particular quality of darkness that belongs to this hour has settled over everything. And somewhere in that darkness, whether you can see it or not, whether you are near it or far, there is water moving. Always, somewhere, there is water moving. A river finding its way around a stone. Rain falling into a lake so far from here, you will never see it. The sea turning and turning against some edge of the world. The world is larger than your worry, older than your concern, quieter at this hour than anything you were asked to do today. Let it be large around you. Let your body sink a little further into the surface beneath you. Feel the warmth that has been gathering there, the warmth that is yours, that your body has been quietly making this whole time. It is there under you and around you, and you can lean into it now, the way you lean into anything that has been waiting for you without impatience. Take one more slow breath. And now, I want to tell you about a man named Elian. He was old, though he would not have said so himself. He would have said, with the particular humor of people who have paid close attention to time, that he had simply been present for a great deal of it. More than most. Enough to notice certain things that take a while to notice. He had spent his working life as a cartographer, a maker of maps, not the digital kind, the older kind. Maps made by hand, on large sheets of paper that smelled of iron and time, with careful lines drawn in ink that dried slowly enough that you had to hold your breath over the most delicate passages. Maps of coastlines mostly. He had a gift for coastlines, for rendering the particular honesty of the place where land admits it is not infinite, where the solid world puts its foot down and says, "Here is where I end." He had traveled for decades to make those maps, cold harbors, windward cliffs, villages at the edge of things where the last houses faced the water and the people inside them had a different relationship with distance than people living inland. He had loved all of it. The work, the travel, the long solitary hours on cliff tops with his instruments and his paper, and the wind doing its best to claim everything. And then he had retired to a stone cottage above the sea, which is where we find him now. It is late in the evening, later than he meant to stay up, though there is no longer anyone to be late for. The fire in the small hearth on the other side of the room has gone down to coals, deep orange, breathing slowly, and the primary light on his work table comes from a single candle, thick, pale, planted in an iron holder. It has been burning long enough that a moat of melted wax has formed around the wick. The flame does not gutter. The night outside is still. Elian is sitting at his work table. He is not doing anything urgent. He is doing the thing he often does in the late evening, when sleep has not yet come to collect him, and there is nothing pressing enough to justify full attention. He is sorting through old maps. There is a particular pleasure in this that is difficult to explain to anyone who has not spent their life making things by hand. The pleasure of returning to old work. Not to correct it, he is long past the age of correcting things, but simply to handle it, to feel the paper under his fingers, the particular weight of a rolled map when you lift it, the way the curl of it resists and then yields as you spread it flat on the table. He has hundreds of them. Most are stored in long tubes in the shelves along the wall. Tall wooden shelves that his hands could find in total darkness, that he had built himself in the first year he lived here. Others are folded into a cedar chest beneath the window. A few, the ones he is most fond of, lie flat in a wide shallow drawer at the bottom of the table. He is not looking for anything in particular. This is important to understand about Elian. He almost never looked for things in particular. He had noticed over the course of a long life that the most interesting arrivals tend to come when you are not looking directly at anything. The way you see stars better from the side of your eye than straight on. He had learned to let his attention go soft, to trust the peripheral, so he is simply handling, lifting and unrolling, spending a few minutes with each one before rolling it carefully and returning it to its tube. This coastline he mapped in his 30s, the long grey one with the sea stacks and the colonies of birds. He can still smell that trip, salt and guano and cold rain. The villages had names he had to ask how to pronounce twice. This one, a tidal inlet he spent a summer on, mapping the way the land changed with the tide. 4 different states of the same piece of coast. He had been proud of that work. Still was, quietly. This one, a harbor he drew in what must have been his late 40s, because he can see the slight tremor in the finest lines. The beginning of a thing that later resolved and then came back again in his 70s. His hands have always told time, more honestly than he would have liked. He sets it aside. He reaches into the cedar chest beneath the window. The chest smells of the wood itself, warm, slightly sweet, and of the paper inside it, which has had decades to develop its own particular fragrance, something between a library and a forest floor. He digs through the folded maps without looking, the way you might reach into a box of old letters. Tactile memory. The hands know their own history better than the mind does. He pulls out a journal. He does not remember it immediately. It is small, the size of his palm, with a dark green cover that is faded to something closer to gray at the edges. The spine is still intact, which is unusual for something this old. He opens it, his handwriting, unmistakably. The particular backward lean of his capital letters, the way his 7s close at the top, his handwriting from, he would guess, his late 40s, maybe early 50s. The ink is brown with age. He reads a few lines. They are field notes, observations, the kind of shorthand he used when he was working. Weather, tide, distances, landmarks. He cannot immediately identify the location from the notes alone. The notes are not the thing that stops him. The thing that stops him is the map folded into the back of the journal. He unfolds it carefully. The paper is thinner than his usual stock, finer, almost translucent at the folds, and the drawing on it is his, absolutely. His line weight, his notation style, his way of indicating depth by small hatched marks along the shore. Every detail of the technique is his own, but he does not recognize the place. He studies it for a long moment. A coastline of modest drama, not the wild cliffs he drew most of his career, but something gentler. Low hills coming down to the water, a small bay, a river entering the sea from the east. A path marked in his notation style, a dotted line running from the coast inland, through what appears to be a forest, up to a ridge, and then down the other side into a valley. And at the end of the dotted path, in the valley, a small symbol he used to use for gates, a gap in a wall. He has no memory of drawing this. He has no memory of this coast. He turns the journal over in his hands. No date on the cover. He checks the inside cover. Nothing. He reads the field notes again more carefully, looking for any landmark he can place, any name, any reference. There's nothing he can identify. And yet, looking at the map, something moves in him that is not memory. It is something older and less specific than memory. The way a piece of music sometimes seems to be about something you knew before you learned language to name it. The way the smell of wood smoke on a cold night can produce an emotion that has no story attached to it. Just the emotion itself, arriving without explanation. He feels, looking at this map of a place he has no memory of visiting, that he knows it. Not that he has been there, that he knows it. There was a difference, though it is difficult to hold in words. And Elian, who had spent a lifetime trying to render the world in language and line, knew better than most people the difference between a thing and its description. He sets the map flat on the table and smooths it with his palm. The candle flame leans fractionally. There must be a small draft from somewhere. Perhaps the gap below the door that he has meant to seal for 3 years and has not. The shadows in the room shift and settle. The coals in the hearth breathe. He looks at the map. The map looks like all his maps. Clean lines, careful hatching, the small notations that give a coast its texture. And yet it does not look like any coast he has ever stood on. He traces the dotted path with one finger, lightly, following it from the shore, through the indicated forest, up toward the ridge, down to the valley. His fingertip stops at the small symbol for the gate. Outside, the sea is invisible in the darkness, but he can hear it. A low, rhythmic presence below the cliff. It has been there every night since he moved here, that sound. He has long since stopped hearing it consciously. It is simply there, the way breathing is simply there. Noticed only when you pay attention or when something makes you pause. He's paying attention now. He picks up the map carefully, holds it, so the candlelight falls across it at an angle. The slight texture of the paper becomes visible this way. The tooth of it, the places where the ink sits on the surface and the places where it has sunk in a little deeper. He has always loved this about hand-drawn maps, that they are also, in some sense, records of the body that made them. The pressure of the hand, the pacer of the wrist, the slight variations that no machine could replicate, and that, over time, became as personal as a signature. He made this. He can feel that he made this, but where is it? And when? And why, of all the maps he ever drew, hundreds of coastlines, inlets, bays, harbors, why does this small, undramatic one feel, sitting here in his hand in the candlelight, like the most important map he has ever touched? He folds it again, gently, and places it on the corner of his work table where the candle's light falls steady, and he will not forget it in the morning. He leans back in his chair. There are things in us, it seems, that are older than our history of ourselves. Feelings that arrive without paperwork. Recognitions that have no record in memory. We spend a great deal of time trying to explain them. This feeling, this ache, This sense that something important lies just at the edge of our knowing. We give it names. We attribute it to the past, to something lost, to some earlier version of ourselves that had what we are now missing. But perhaps it is not about the past at all. Perhaps the ache has always been arriving from somewhere ahead. Elian sits in the candlelight and listens to the sea. The coals in the hearth glow and dim. The small shell he uses as a paperweight, pale, ridged, found on the beach below the cottage 20 years ago, catches a small piece of the candle's warmth and holds it. The crack in the plaster wall that he has watched since he first moved here, that begins just above the left side of the window frame and travels toward the ceiling in a line as precise and unhurried as anything he ever drew. It is there in the half-dark, patient, as always. He reaches out and puts 2 fingers on the map, not tracing it this time, just resting there. The way you put your hand on the shoulder of something you are not yet ready to examine completely but do not want to let go. The candle burns. The sea breathes below the cliff. And Elian, for the first time in a long time, for the first time perhaps since he was a young man standing on a cold headland with his paper and his instruments, looking out at the unreachable line where the sea met the sky, feels quietly and without alarm that he is standing at the beginning of something. Not an ending, a beginning. Your body is heavier than it was when this began, not uncomfortably, the good kind of heaviness, the kind that means you have stopped fighting gravity, that you have agreed with the surface beneath you that you belong there. Your hands are still. Your breath has found a slower rhythm on its own without being asked. The room around you is quiet. Whatever sounds it carries, the small distant sounds of a night continuing on without your management, they are simply part of the texture of this moment. Background, the frame, not the painting. You are safe. You are still. And somewhere in the half-dark of your mind, in the place where the day's noise has finally begun to thin, there is a candlelit room, and an old cartographer sitting at a work table, and a map he has never seen before but somehow has always known. You can rest here. You can follow this wherever it goes without needing to hold on to it, without needing to remember. It will take you where it takes you, and you do not need to navigate. For tonight, there is someone else drawing the path. All you need to do is breathe and let the story come. He does not leave his chair. This is worth saying at the beginning because the mind likes to know what is real and what is not. Though on nights like this, when the candle has burned low and the sea is a presence rather than a sight, and the body has settled into the comfortable democracy of late hours, the difference between those 2 things becomes less important than we usually pretend. Elian sits at his work table with 2 fingers resting on the map. And the map opens. Not literally, not with any sound or drama, the way a path opens when morning fog clears, not because anything has changed, but because what was always there has simply become visible. One moment he is looking at lines on paper. The next moment the lines are a place, a real place. He can feel the air of it, the specific temperature of an evening in early autumn, the quality of light that belongs to the hour just after the sun has gone, but before the sky has given up its last held warmth. He can smell the sea. Not his sea, not the particular salt and seaweed smell of the water below his cottage, which he has come to know the way you know a neighbor's voice. A different sea. Younger, somehow. Or perhaps he's younger in it. The air carries the salt differently here. Lighter, with something beneath it he cannot immediately identify. Something green and distant. The smell of land and water in a particular negotiation. He's standing on a path. Stone beneath his feet. Not rough, worn smooth by an impossible amount of use, the way stone gets when it has been walked on by centuries of feet, each one leaving something too small to measure and yet adding, over time, to this quality of smoothness, of welcome. His boots settle into it with a familiar click. He has worn these boots a long time. They know the difference between cobblestone, a cliff path, and the compressed earth of a forest trail, and they tell him so through the soles of his feet. This is cobblestone. The path curves gently downward ahead of him, turning left around a shoulder of rock before descending toward a cluster of lights below. Not many lights. Enough to suggest a village rather than a city, perhaps 30 or 40 windows, amber and warm, arranged on a hillside above a small harbor. The harbor is dark. The boats in it are shapes rather than colors. Above the village, the hill continues upward into a sky that is the deep, saturated blue of the hour between dusk and full dark. Not black yet, still holding the memory of the sun in its upper reaches, the light retreating slowly, like someone leaving a room quietly so as not to wake anyone. Elian begins to walk. He does not decide to walk. He simply finds that he's walking, the way you sometimes find, in a dream, that you have been somewhere for a while before you know it. His hands are at his sides. The air on his face is cool, not cold. The path carries him around the shoulder of rock, and the village comes into fuller view below him. He can see the line of the harbor now, the particular darkness of water at rest, the way the reflections of the lit windows fall into it in broken columns of amber. He can hear from somewhere below the sound of the harbor, not dramatic, just the low conversation between boats and water, a creak, a small lap, the occasional knock of wood against wood, the sounds of a harbor at rest. He has heard hundreds of harbors. They each have their own voice, shaped by their geography, the materials of the boats, the behavior of the local water. This one is quiet-voiced, assured. It has been here a long time and sees no reason to announce itself. He descends. The path takes him between the first houses of the village, and here the air changes. The salt note is still present, but now there are layers over it, under it, woven through it. He passes a low window and catches the particular warmth of a house in the evening, cooked food and wood burning somewhere inside, and the faint ghost of something that might be bread or might be something bread adjacent, a roll, a flat cake, something made in an oven and recently. His stomach does not respond the way a hungry stomach would. This is not appetite. This is simpler and older than appetite. This is the pleasure of a smell that means people are inside. They are warm. There is enough. He slows without meaning to. Through the window, he does not stop, but he slows enough to see. There is a table with a lamp on it, an ordinary wooden table, the kind that has accommodated 1,000 meals and shows it. the surface worn pale at the center where the plates always go. The lamp is glass, old-fashioned, and the light inside it is the same color as the candle on his work table at home. Warm, specific, the kind of light that makes everything it touches look like it is being remembered rather than seen. There is a woman at the table. She is doing something with her hands. He cannot tell what. She is turned slightly away, and she is not looking up, and she does not know she is being observed. And in that unknowing, she has a quality of completeness, of simply being there, occupied with whatever she is occupied with, contained inside the ordinary moment of an evening in her kitchen. And Elian, walking past on the cobblestones in the cooling air, feels something that he is old enough to recognize without being surprised by, a longing, not for her specifically, not for the lamp or the kitchen or even for an evening like that one, something less definable, the longing that is triggered by the sight of a lit window from outside, the specific ache of the person looking in at warmth they are not part of. He has felt it all his life, walking past houses as a young man, standing on cliff tops watching fishing boats return to harbors he would leave in the morning, sitting in libraries in foreign cities surrounded by people who belong there and knowing himself to be passing through. Not loneliness, exactly. It has none of loneliness's bitterness. It is purer than that and more difficult to name. More like standing outside music, hearing it through a wall and knowing that on the other side of the wall, something is happening that you are not quite inside of, and wanting not to interrupt it, not to break into it, but to be met by it, to have it turn and include you. He has felt this at sunset, at the last note of certain pieces of music, at the faces of people he loves in unguarded moments, turned away, thinking about something else, luminous in their unknowing. He has felt it in the smell of rain on warm stone, in the quality of light on a particular October afternoon, in the first cold morning of autumn, when the air has that crystalline edge that suggests the world has been renewed overnight without asking permission. He has always, eventually, called it nostalgia, told himself he was missing something from the past, some earlier version of himself, some earlier arrangement of the world, some morning or evening that had been particularly good and was now only available in memory's imperfect archive. But walking now through this village he has never visited, feeling the familiar ache in its familiar form, he notices for the first time something strange about that explanation. He cannot identify what he is supposed to be missing. The feeling is present and specific and unmistakable. The ache is real. But when he tries to aim it backward, when he tries to find the thing in his past that this feeling is supposed to be mourning, there is nothing there. No particular morning, no particular person or place or season. The feeling has no object in his history, which means perhaps that his history is not where it belongs. He walks on through the village. The cobblestones change slightly here. Wider, flatter, the stones fitted more tightly together. The main street, he thinks, or what passes for one in a village this size. There is a small square head with a stone basin in the center, a fountain or a well, he cannot tell from here, and around it the buildings are a little taller, a little more considered in their arrangement. A public space. The kind of space that a village creates to acknowledge that it is a collection of people, rather than just a collection of houses. The basin catches the last of the sky's light on its surface. The water in it is still, and the stillness of it has a particular quality. Not the stillness of something empty, but the stillness of something that has been very patient for a very long time. He passes it, and his eye catches the reflection of the deepening sky in the water, and the sky in the basin looks somehow more like the sky than the sky itself. The way reflections sometimes distill a thing to its essence. He does not stop. The path leads him on through the far side of the square, and between two houses, and then there is a gap in the buildings, and the harbor appears briefly. Close, now, the dark water perhaps 30 yards from where he stands, before the path turns and begins to climb again, leaving the village behind. He can hear the water differently from here. A small river runs along the lower edge of the village, entering the harbor between two wooden jetties that have been there long enough to have gone gray, and the sound of the river, separate from the harbor sound, lighter and more variable, a sound that moves rather than rests, accompanies him as he climbs the path out of the village and into the field above it. Behind him, the village lights fall away slowly. He does not turn to watch them go, but he is aware of them at his back for some time, amber against the dark, diminishing. And then the path turns again, and they are gone. He is in open ground now. The path threads through a field of long grass that the wind moves in slow, continuous waves. Not urgently, not dramatically, just the steady, unhurried motion of grass in a consistent wind that has been blowing all day and will blow all night and finds no reason to hurry. The sound of it is like breathing, low and even and foundational, the kind of sound that exists at the bottom of other sounds that you only notice when you are listening carefully or when everything else has gone quiet. The air up here is different from the village air, less sheltered. The salt is sharper, and there is a mineral quality to it. Stone somewhere, wet stone on a hillside above him that he cannot yet see. And something else. Something light and sweet in the lower register of the smell. Not floral exactly, more like the memory of a flower, something that bloomed here earlier in the season and has left its trace in the air the way perfume leaves itself in the room after the person has gone. His boots find the change in the path from cobblestone to compressed earth. The sound changes with it, a softer contact. The slight give of a surface that has absorbed rain and dried slowly and is now a kind of dense, stable softness that takes his footsteps in without complaint. He walks through the field. The sky above him is darker now than it was in the village. The last light has gone from the upper registers of blue, and what remains is a deep, saturated darkness that is not quite black, still holding color in it, still in the transition, the sky not yet sure of itself. The first stars are appearing. Not many. The ones that come first are the ones most certain of their welcome. The planets, which do not flicker, and the very brightest of the fixed stars, which hold their light with the quiet authority of things that have been here longer than anything that looks up at them. He watches one appear, a planet, he thinks, low in the south, from nothing to presence, as though someone in a distant room has lit a very small lamp. The field ends at a low stone wall, and in the wall there is a gap, and through the gap the path continues, and he follows it down a slope toward the sound of water. He hears the brook before he sees it. It has a different voice from the river in the village, faster, shallower, more variable, working its way around stones that it has not yet worn smooth. A younger sound, more talk, less resolution. The sound of a water that is still working out where it is going and finding some pleasure in the uncertainty. The path brings him to a bridge. It is a stone bridge, old, the kind of bridge that gets built with the logic of a thing that must last longer than the person building it. Single arch, low parapet on each side, the stones fitted without mortar in the old way, held by weight and angle and time. The handrail, if there was ever one, is gone, but the coping stones at the top of each parapet are still there, wide and flat and worn smooth by as many hands as the path was worn smooth by feet. He stops on the bridge. The brook below him is perhaps 2 feet deep at its deepest point. He can see the stones of the bed through the water, pale and rounded, caught by the last light or perhaps by his own eyes' adjustment to the dark. The water moves across them in sheets that thin and thicken as the depth changes, and the sound is layered, the high voice of the water coming fastest over the shallowest stretch, and beneath it a lower note where the channel deepens against the base of the arch, and beneath that a steady foundational rush that seems to come from the water itself, rather than from its contact with anything. He puts his hands on the coping stone. It is cold. Stone holds cold, the way it holds nothing else, not the aggressive cold of metal, which takes the warmth from you quickly and without ceremony, but the slow, patient cold of stone that has been in shadow all day and has been accumulating the night's temperature since the sun went down. His palms find it and rest there. The cold moves into his hands slowly, not unpleasantly. There is something clarifying about it, the way cold water on the face clarifies, bringing you back to the particular coordinates of your body. He is here. Wherever here is, he is here. His hands are on this stone. This water is making this sound below him. The air coming up from the brook is colder than the air of the field. There is always a cold thread of air over moving water, even in summer. The water drawing it down, the motion of the surface creating its own small weather. He stands on the bridge for a long time, not thinking exactly, attending. The sound of the brook organizing itself below him. The stars beginning to establish themselves in greater numbers overhead. The smell of the water. It has a smell that is different from standing water. Moving water smells of itself and of the land it has moved through, and this one carries something of the hill above him, something peaty and mineral and clean. He has stood on many bridges. He has drawn many bridges on many maps, always as simple notation, a small symbol, because a map cannot contain what it feels like to stand on one in the dark and listen to the water doing its complicated and purposeful work beneath you. He has always loved bridges more than he has ever managed to explain. There is something about the position of them, the way they are built, specifically to allow you to stop in the middle of the crossing, over the thing you are crossing, neither on this bank nor on that. The in-between place. And from the in-between place you can hear the water the way you cannot hear it from the bank. You are above it, but of it. Your weight on the thing built over it, the sound coming up from below and surrounding you on both sides. And for a moment, the brook is not an obstacle to be crossed, but a presence to be stood inside. He has spent a great deal of his life on bridges, now that he thinks about it. Not always literal ones. He lifts his hands from the coping stone and walks on. The path climbs again on the far side of the brook. Steeper now, the field giving way to rougher ground, and then to the beginning of the trees. The forest does not begin dramatically. It begins the way most forests begin, which is gradually and without announcement. First, one tree, standing alone in the field like a thought occurring before the sentence has properly started. Then two or three together. Then the trees becoming more numerous and the spaces between them narrowing. And then you realize you are inside without having crossed any border. The field is behind you, and the forest is around you, and no single step made the difference. The trees here are old oak. He can tell by the shapes of them in the dark, the way the trunk divides and redivides, the branches not reaching upward in the manner of younger trees competing for light, but spreading outward with the authority of things that won that competition long ago and have been living in the victory ever since. The bark has that particular corrugated depth of old oak. He knows this by what he can see of it, by the way the darkness thickens around the trunk's surface, the texture readable even in low light, and by the smell. Old oak has a smell. It is layered and complex and changes slightly depending on the season and the recent weather. But there is a through note in it that he has never found anywhere else. Something between leather and earth and rain on stone, with a faint sweetness that is not quite sweet, more like the suggestion of sweetness, the way some light suggests warmth without providing it. He has smelled it on cold mornings, in a dozen forests, in a dozen countries over the course of a career that took him everywhere. There was a coastline to map. It has never failed to produce the same response in him, a stillness, a willingness to slow down. The floor of the forest is soft, decades of fallen leaves, and the slow work of moisture and time have produced a deep bed of decomposed matter that gives slightly under his weight with each step, not wetly, not unpleasantly, but noticeably. He is aware of it through his boots. The forest is absorbing him slightly, making him part of its ongoing process. He leaves impressions that will be there in the morning and will tell a story of his passing to whatever comes after. He walks deeper in. The trees close overhead and the sky disappears except in fragments. Narrow apertures between the canopy through which stars are visible. Occasional small windows of deep blue against the darker architecture of branches. It is dimmer here than in the field, but not dark in the disorienting sense. His eyes, fully adjusted now, find enough light to navigate. The pale path between the trees, the slight luminosity of the bark, the way the open ground between root structures holds more light than the areas the trees have claimed. There are sounds in the forest that were not in the field. Small sounds, the creak of a branch adjusting its weight somewhere higher above him. The almost inaudible rustle that means something small has moved, a mouse or a vole, surprised by his footsteps, retreating into the undergrowth. Once, from somewhere in the middle distance, the sound of something larger, though not alarming, a slow, heavy movement among the leaves, a deer or something deer-sized, unhurried, not frightened, and beneath all of it, distant but continuous, the brook he crossed behind him, still audible through the trees, diminishing with each step but present, like a conversation continuing in a room you've left. The path curves through the oaks and he follows it without needing to think about it. His feet have understood the path in the way that feet understand things when the mind has been released from navigation. He is not directing himself. He is being carried. There is a pleasure in this specific to the late hours when the insistence of the will has quieted enough that other kinds of knowing can come forward. He notices at the edge of his vision movement, not alarming, lithe movement, a subtle oscillation in a patch of lower vegetation off to his right, some ground-level plant responding to a small breath of air that has found its way into the forest's interior through some passage between the trees. The plant is something he cannot identify, though its shape, low-growing, broad-leaved, clustering in a hollow where the light is slightly better, is familiar in the way that forest plants are familiar even when unnamed. He has walked through enough forests that the specific species have given way to a general literacy. He may not know the name, but he knows what it means. Water nearby, or recently, or the memory of water in the soil. He passes it, and then he smells it. The thing he could not identify in the field. It is stronger here, closer to its source. Something flowering nearby. Night blooming, he thinks. Many forest flowers time themselves to the dark, when certain moths are flying that will carry their pollen. The smell is not quite jasmine, not quite anything he can name with precision. It is sweeter than the oak, sweeter than the earth, and lighter. It sits on top of the other smells the way oil sits on water, distinct and unmixable, making itself known without displacing anything else. He stops. He does not mean to stop. He simply does, the way you stop when something requires more attention than walking allows. He stands very still in the forest, and he breathes, and the smell of the night flower comes and goes with each small movement of air, present, then less present, then present again, the way certain things only reveal themselves intermittently, as though they understand that too much of themselves at once would be too much. He is aware, standing here, of something he has thought about before but never quite in these terms. He has spent his life at the edges of things, coastlines, the edge of land, cliff tops, the edge of solid ground, bridges, the edge of one bank and the other. And now, here, a path moving through a forest towards something he cannot yet see, and the smell of a flower he cannot identify, and the feeling, familiar, specific, unmistakable, of being very close to something he does not have the language for. He has always reached for language. That was his job, to render places in notation, to give coastlines their precise and documented form, to say, here is where the land is, and here is where it is not, and this is the shape of the border between them. But this feeling has never submitted to that. This feeling, the one the lit window produced, the one the brook produced, the one the night flower is producing now, has no notation. He has tried, at various points in his life, to to describe it to people he trusted. He has always ended up shaking his head halfway through, saying something insufficient, something that approached the thing from the outside without getting inside it. What he usually said, in the end, was that it felt like missing something, that it felt like grief without a clear object, like the emotion that belongs to loss but cut loose from any specific loss, floating free of its cause and attaching itself indiscriminately to beautiful things, to lit windows, to the sound of moving water, to the smell of something flowering in a dark forest. He believed this for a long time. He believed it because it was the closest available explanation, and because the emotion felt like grief. It had that quality of wanting, of incompleteness, of retching toward something not fully present. And grief, in his experience, always had a backward direction. It faced what was gone. But standing here now, in the forest, with the night flower coming and going on the air and the stars visible in pieces through the canopy and the path continuing ahead of him, toward something the map placed at the end of a valley he has not yet seen. He wonders if he has been facing the wrong direction. He wonders if the feeling has always been pointing forward, and he has simply been standing with his back to where it was pointing, interpreting the pressure on his shoulders as the push of something lost, rather than the pull of something approaching. He wonders if the longing is not about what is behind him at all, because he cannot find it there. He has looked. He has spent decades looking backward for the thing the longing was supposed to be mourning, and it is not there. There is no specific mourning he is missing, no particular light, no arrangement of the world from his past that the feeling is asking to return to. The feeling is old and consistent and absolutely real, and when he tries to point it backward, it simply doesn't point that way. The needle turns. The compass doesn't recognize what he is asking it to do. The night flower comes again on the air, sweeter this time, closer, or the air simply better organized in its direction, the scent of something you have not yet found. He breathes it in slowly. The forest is quiet around him, the deep, breathing quiet of a place that has been here much longer than he has and will be here long after him, and is not performing its quiet for his benefit, but simply existing in it, as it always exists. The oaks have been standing here through seasons he will never know. The path beneath his feet was made by someone long before him, and will be walked by someone long after. And for a moment, he is aware of his position in that long sequence, a single traveler on a path that belongs to all of them at once. And the awareness is not saddening. It is strangely the opposite, like being part of something, like being for a moment included. He begins to walk again. The path through the forest climbs slowly, the grade almost imperceptible but present. He can feel it in the backs of his calves, a mild but steady accumulation of effort. The trees begin to thin, very slightly as he climbs, or perhaps his eyes are adjusting further, finding more light in the same darkness. The sky becomes more visible above him. More stars now, many more. The deep wealth of them that becomes visible when you are outside the radius of human light, when the sky is allowed to be what it actually is, rather than what we usually see of it. He walks toward the thinning of the trees. He walks toward the ridge. He does not hurry. There is no reason to hurry. Whatever is at the end of this path, the gate in the valley, the place on the map he drew and cannot remember drawing, it is not going anywhere. It has not been going anywhere. If it has been there long enough for him to have mapped it once already, however that happened and whenever, then it will be there when he arrives. He is walking, and the forest is around him, and the night flower comes and goes on the air, and the stars are increasing overhead, and somewhere behind him the brook is still working its way over its stones, too distant now to hear, but still there, still doing what it does, patient as everything that knows where it is going. And Elian, who has spent his life mapping the edges of things, walks on through the inside of the forest, for once not making a record of anything, not rendering anything in notation, simply moving through a world that is showing itself to him in the dark, offering its smells and its sounds, and its textures and its darkness and its small intermittent sweetnesses, and asking nothing in return except that he keep walking. He keeps walking. Your breath is slower now, much slower. If you can feel it, the rise and fall of your chest, the slight expansion and release, it has found a rhythm on its own. It has stopped waiting for you to manage it. Your body knows how to breathe itself. It has been doing it your whole life, through every night you have ever slept, through every dream you cannot remember. It does not need your attention. Let it go. The forest is around you, the way the night is around you, the way the room is around you. Different circles of the same thing, the world continuing, patient, holding you inside it without effort, the way water holds everything that floats. You do not need to follow every step of this. You can let it move the way a river moves. You are on the water, not driving it. The current knows where it's going. It has always known. Rest in it. Elian is still walking. The trees are thinning ahead of him, and the sky is opening, and the ridge is there, waiting at the top of the hill with its cold air and its wide view and its great dark patience. You can follow him there. Or you can rest here, in the forest, in the smell of the old oak and the night flower, in the sound of your own breathing in a quiet room. Either way, you're exactly where you need to be. The last tree stands alone. He notices it the way you notice the last house before open country, not because it is remarkable in itself, but because of what comes after it. It is an oak like the others, old and broad and unhurried, but it stands at the edge of the forest's reach, where the canopy finally gives way to sky, and it has grown differently from the trees behind it, more asymmetrical. The branches on its exposed side shorter and more thickened than those on the sheltered side, shaped by decades of wind coming off the ridge above. The tree's long record of the prevailing weather written in the architecture of its limbs. He stops beside it, puts his hand against the bark. It is rough in the way that old oak is rough, not sharp, but deeply textured, the surface broken into small plates and ridges that have been forming since the tree was young, adding definition the way a face adds definition over a long life. The cold has settled into it too, the bark holding the night's temperature with the same patient capacity as the bridge stones below, though here there is something else underneath the cold, a faint, deep warmth, the warmth of a living thing barely perceptible but present. The particular warmth of something that is, inside all that roughness, still growing, still counting years. He leaves his hand there a moment. Then he walks out of the trees. The sky arrives all at once. That is how it feels, not gradual, not the slow widening he experienced as the forest thinned, but a single, complete arrival. One step he is under the canopy, and the next step he is under the full open sky, and the full open sky on a clear night at this elevation, in a place without the bleed of human light, is not the sky he is accustomed to seeing from his cottage or from the windows of trains or from the harbor towns he worked in for decades. It is the sky as it actually is. He stops walking. He has seen this before. Proper darkness, proper sky. Enough times to know that the response in him is not an accident, not a trick of overwhelm. He has seen this sky on cold headlands in his 30s, in mountain passes in his 40s, in the middle of the ocean on a research vessel in his 50s, lying on his back on the deck at midnight with the water moving under the hull and the Milky Way directly above him, like the inside of something vast and breathing. He has seen it enough times to know that the response does not diminish with familiarity. Every time it does this, takes the breath slightly, not with shock. The feeling is not a shock, with a quality that is closer to being addressed, as though the sky, in its full extravagance, is making a statement, and the statement is directed at something in him that recognizes it, even if the rest of him cannot immediately say what is being said. He stands on the ridge. The ground beneath his feet has changed from the forest floor to short, sparse grass and exposed rock, the kind of ground that exists above the tree line, windswept and mineral, where the soil is thin and what grows there does so by special arrangement with the conditions. His boots find the solidity of it, not the forest's softness, not the path's smoothness, just the bare fact of high ground. The ridge runs east and west before him, not dramatically elevated. This is not the crest of a mountain range, not a place where the air is thin or the altitude produces its own vertigo. It is simply high enough to see from, high enough that the village below has become a scatter of small amber lights, small as candle flames seen through the wrong end of a telescope, nestled between the hill's dark shoulder and the darker dark of the harbor, high enough that the forest below him is a density rather than a detail, a mass of blackness where the trees are, distinguishable from the field only by its texture, its slight difference in tone. And to the south, the sea. He knew it was there. The map had told him it was there. His nose had told him it was there long before he reached the ridge. The salt had been in the air since the path left the village, increasing as he climbed. But knowing and seeing are different negotiations with the world, and seeing it now, the sea at night, at this distance, from this height, requires a moment of simple looking before anything else. It is not the sea in any dramatic register. There is no storm, no crashing, no violence of water against rock. From here, it is a presence more than a sight, a vast, dark, barely differentiated surface that begins where the land ends and continues to the horizon, which is not a line so much as a gradual dissolution. The darkness of the water meeting the darkness of the sky, it a boundary too soft to locate precisely. It is out there the way the sky is up there. Large, in the way that resists description because description requires edges and this has none. What it does have is light. Small light. The light of stars reflected in the moving surface, not the mirror reflection of still water, but the scattered, shifting, fragmented reflection that moving water produces. The sea is writing and rewriting the sky's light continuously, breaking it apart and reassembling it in patterns that are never the same twice. And from this distance and this height, the effect is of a surface that is itself faintly luminous, as though the sea contains its own light, dim and restless, rather than borrowing the skies. He has drawn coastlines his whole life. He has never managed to draw this. He stands on the ridge and looks at the sea for a long time. The wind up here is not strong, but it is constant. A steady, unhurried movement of air from the west that is cool against his face and carries with it the full, unmodified smell of the open water. None of the village smells here. None of the forest's layered complexity. Just the sea in its simplicity, which is not really simple at all. Salt and depth and the memory of weather and the particular aliveness of water that has been moving continuously for longer than there have been words for time. He turns his face into it. There is a pleasure that is also an ache in this. He knows it well. The pleasure of the large thing, of standing inside something immeasurable and feeling briefly a sense of proportion that the small arrangements of daily life do not provide. The reminder that the world is vast and old and that his presence in it is simultaneously insignificant and somehow not irrelevant. He has spent his career at these edges precisely because of this feeling. He never quite found language for it, but he arranged his life around finding it, which is one of the things you can do when language fails. Navigate by feel, follow the pull, trust that the thing you cannot name is nevertheless real and worth orienting toward. He sits down, not on a bench or a stone. There is nothing of that kind up here. He simply lowers himself to the ground, the short grass and the cold rock beneath him, and sits with his knees drawn up slightly and his hands resting on them. His body's warmth begins immediately to negotiate with the coldness of the ground. He can feel the cold through his trousers, the slow insistence of it, the way it will eventually require his attention. For now, it is simply a fact. The ground is cold. He is sitting on it. He is also here, on this ridge, under this sky, with the sea below him and the forest behind him, and the village's small lights further below still. And all of this is real in the way that the most real things are real. Immediately, sensorially, without requiring thought to confirm. He breathes. The air on the inhale is cold enough to be felt as cold. A slight sharpening at the back of the throat, a clarity that city air and indoor air do not have, the kind of cold that makes you aware of breathing itself rather than taking it for granted. He breathes it in and holds it briefly and lets it go, and it is, he thinks, one of the better things available to a person, the simple privilege of cold, clean air on a clear night. He looks up. The stars. He has looked at stars all his life. He knows, not in the detailed technical way of an astronomer, but in the navigational, habitual way of someone who has spent decades outdoors at night, a great deal about what he is looking at. He knows the ones that don't flicker are planets. He knows the smear of lighter darkness across the sky's center is the galaxy seen from its own interior. He knows, more or less, which direction is north and which features of the sky will tell him so. But knowing these things does not reduce what he is looking at to what he knows about it. It never has. The information sits beside the experience without explaining it. The way knowing the chemical composition of wood smoke does not explain what wood smoke smells like, or why it causes, in certain people at certain moments, a feeling of impossible homecoming. The stars are doing what the stars always do, which is to be there, to be in their places, to have been in their places before he was born, and to continue in their places after everything he has ever known is finished, including the language he would use to describe them. They are not indifferent. That word implies awareness of the thing they are failing to notice, and the stars are not aware of him in any sense he can demonstrate. But they are not hostile either. They are simply present in the way that the very oldest things are present, without agenda, without performance, simply being what they are, with a completeness that cannot be added to or taken from. He has always found this paradoxically comforting. The being there of things that do not need you. The continuity of the world that does not depend on your management of it. There is a particular peace available in that, if you are willing to accept it, the peace of being small inside something large, of releasing the grip of consequence, of letting the world be older and vaster and more indifferent than you, and finding that the release of that grip does not make you fall, but in fact sets you down more gently on the solid ground of things as they actually are. He has tried to explain this to people over the years, and it has never come out right. It sounds like resignation. It sounds like giving up. It is not. It is the opposite of giving up. It is the act of finally putting down a weight you were never asked to carry. The weight of holding everything together by force of personal attention and discovering that everything holds together anyway, by forces so much older and more fundamental than attention that the comparison is almost comic. He exhales. The wind moves his hair slightly. The cold of the ground has progressed from fact to mild insistence, and he shifts his weight fractionally, finds a slightly less cold arrangement. The stars have not moved, of course, not noticeably, not in the minutes he has been sitting here. Though they are moving, they are always moving, in the great slow arc of the sky's rotation. He will not be here long enough to see it. He is not sure how long he has been walking. Time on this path has not operated the way it usually operates. Not stretched or compressed exactly, simply different, less marked. He has not been counting minutes or measuring distance. He has been inside the walk the way you are, inside a piece of music that is going well, not watching it from outside, not timing it, simply being in it, in the movement, in the sound and the passing shapes of things. He has been in it. He is still in it. But here, on the ridge, the walk has paused itself. Or he has paused it. The path continues. He can see it from where he sits, continuing from the far side of the ridge down into the darkness of the valley below, where the map said there was a gate. He can see, or thinks he can see, the darker mass of something down there, another stand of trees, or perhaps a hillside, or the beginning of the valley's walls. He cannot make out detail. It is too dark and too far. But he is not yet going there. He is here first. And there is something that needs to be here first. He does not know the shape of it yet, does not have the words, but he has enough experience with the feeling to know when it is asking for room. And it is asking for room now, and so he gives it room. He sits on the cold ground with his hands on his knees, and he looks at the sea below and the sky above, and he lets the feeling be as large as it wants to be. It is large. It is larger perhaps than it has ever been in a single moment. Perhaps because he has been walking toward it for a while now without knowing that was what he was doing. Perhaps because the sky and the sea and the night have combined their particular forces on this ridge in a way that offers the feeling the right conditions to show its full size. Perhaps simply because he is old enough now to have stopped flinching away from it, to have stopped reaching for a smaller, more manageable name. He lets it be large. The longing. That is what it is. It has always been what it is. The inconsolable, beautiful, sourceless longing that is threaded through his entire life like a second melody, present in the happiness and present in the grief, present in the work he loved and the mornings he woke to with gratitude and the evenings he watched the light leave the sky from windows in 100 different places, always there, always pointing somewhere, always arriving like a signal from a transmitter whose location he has spent his life trying to triangulate. He could not find the source by looking backward. He has tried over and over to identify the object, to say, this is what I am missing. This specific thing, this person or place or period of my life. And every time the longing has simply turned in his hands like a compass needle that does not recognize the direction he is pointing it, as though he were trying to measure a thing in units that were simply wrong for the task. Not backward. He sits with that. Not backward. All those years of facing the wrong way, facing the history, the memory, the record of what has been, and the feeling refusing to point there, and him assuming that the failure of direction was his own failure, a failure of memory, a failure of precision. If only he could remember exactly right, identify exactly the thing that was lost, perhaps the longing would find its object and be satisfied. But the longing was never pointing at what was behind him. He knows this now with a quiet certainty that has no drama in it. The certainty of something finally seen that was always there to be seen. The way you finally understand the grammar of a foreign language, not through study, but through a single moment of sudden, wordless clarity. Not because something changed, but because something shifted in how you were looking. The longing was never pointing at what was behind him. It was pointing here. It was pointing at this ridge, this sky, this sea, this cold air on his face, this path continuing down into this valley toward a gate he drew in his own hand in a journal he cannot date. It was pointing at all of this the entire time, and he was standing with his back to the direction of the pointing and calling the pressure on his shoulders, grief for things lost, rather than the steady, patient pool of things that had not yet arrived. The night flower was not the echo of something he had smelled before. It was a report from somewhere ahead. He sits with the sea below him, and the stars above him, and the wind in his face, and he breathes slowly in the cold air. and the longing is enormous and present and entirely without pain. That is the strange thing. In its full size, this feeling that he has always experienced as a form of aching has no ache in it. Or rather, the ache is still there, but it has changed quality entirely. The way a sound changes when you finally understand that it is music rather than noise. The same wave forms, the same frequencies, the same arrival at the ear. But the meaning is entirely different, and the meaning is everything. He is not missing something. He is being called toward something. He has been being called toward something his whole life. And the calling has used every beautiful and resonant thing available to make itself heard. The lit windows and the last notes and the quality of certain autumn light and the smell of rain on warm stone and the faces of people he loved in unguarded moments. All of it recruited as signal. All of it pressed into service as a message that could not be delivered any other way, because the destination is beyond the edges of any map he has ever made, and the only notation available was the feeling itself, every scent that made him pause, every piece of music that seemed to be about something larger than itself, every moment of wordless recognition at the edge of the sea or beneath a sky like this one. Not memories, not losses, reports, news from a country he has never yet visited. He is quiet for a long time. The wind on the ridge does not increase or decrease. It maintains its steady westerly pressure, cool and consistent, carrying the salt of the open water and the mineral clarity of high ground. The sea below continues its slow, luminous movement, writing and rewriting the starlight in patterns that never repeat. The village lights, he can see them still, far below and to the north, hold their warmth against the surrounding dark without effort, without drama, simply present the way home is present when you are at a sufficient distance to see it whole. He thinks about all the places he has stood, all the cliff tops, and all the headlands and all the harbors, all the coastlines he has rendered in careful notation, all the places where the solid world admitted its own limits, and the water began. He has spent his life at edges. He understood it professionally. Cartography is the discipline of edges, of boundaries, of the precise rendering of where one thing ends and another begins. But he understands something now about why he was drawn to that particular discipline in that particular way. He was drawn to it because he was already, in some foundational sense, living at an edge. Because the feeling he carried, the longing, the compass needle that would not point backward, was itself an edge condition. The sensation of being at the border of something, of being on this side of a door and knowing, without having seen the other side, that there is another side, and that the other side is not the same as this, not more of this, but something for which this is a preparation, or rumor, a very early draft. He has been living in the rumor. He has been living in the draft. And the draft has been very beautiful. The draft has been full of water and light and people and coastlines and the smell of ink on cold mornings and the particular warmth of certain friendships and the satisfaction of work done carefully. The draft has been, in the fullest sense, a life. He does not wish to revise it or return it, but the draft has always been pointing beyond itself, beyond its own best moments, Even the most beautiful passage in the draft has been pointing beyond itself, has had in it that quality of gesture, of indication, of saying, yes, this and more than this. Yes, here and beyond here. Yes, now, and not only now. He reaches down and puts his palm flat on the cold ground beside him. The short grass is slightly damp now, dew beginning to form as the temperature drops, the tiny beads of moisture gathering on each blade, and his palm finds it. The faint, cold, specific dampness of grass in the middle of the night. Such a particular sensation, so entirely itself, not like anything else. He presses his palm slightly into the ground and feels the give of the sparse soil under the grass, and beneath that, the resistance of the rock, and beneath the rock he cannot feel further, but he knows it is there, the deep weight of the hill, the geological patience of the stone, the immense seniority of the earth he is sitting on. He is here. He is here, and the stars are overhead, and the sea is below, and the path continues into the valley, and somewhere down there in the dark is a gate that is open, that has always been open, that was open before he drew it, and will be open after the drawing is gone. He does not need to rush to it. He does not need to rush to anything. He sits on the ridge for a long time, in the cold and the dark and the wide patience of the night, and the longing is present with him not as a wound but as a compass, not as a grief but as a direction, not as the ache of something missing but as the sound of where he is going carried backward through time to find him here, on this ridge, on this night, in this body, alive and breathing and pointed in at last the right direction. The wind comes again from the west. He closes his eyes. Under the closed eyelids, not darkness exactly, but the particular inner landscape of the mind when the external inputs have been reduced. A slow, warm, sourceless light that has no direction because it is interior, that shifts the way a fire shifts behind closed eyes if you have been sitting near one. He is aware of his breath, in and out, slower than it was when he was walking, slower perhaps than it has been all day. The ridge and the cold and the sitting down and the long thinking having produced collectively the quietest state of his body in many hours. He sits inside his closed eyes. The wind, the sea, the vast ordinary miracle of a cold, clear night on a high place. He is not trying to hold any of it. He has stopped trying to hold things. He has been doing it for years, releasing the grip, practicing the open hand. And tonight, on this ridge, the grip is simply not there. The hand is open. And nothing has fallen, because nothing was ever sustained by his holding it. And the relief of knowing that, of feeling that, is its own kind of rest. He opens his eyes. The stars are still in their places. Of course they are. He is aware faintly of something else. Something at the lower edge of his attention, like a sound beneath other sounds. The ache is still present. He was not expecting it to be gone. The compass needle has found its direction, but it has not stopped being a compass. It still pulls, still orients, still wants. The wanting does not stop simply because you have understood it better. If anything, the understanding makes the wanting cleaner, simpler, less encumbered by the confusion of thinking it was pointing somewhere it was not. He wants to go to the gate. He has been wanting to go to the gate for longer than he has had words for wanting. He does not rise immediately. He stays a moment more on the cold ground, with the dew forming in the grass under his palm, with the stars overhead and the sea below in the fullness of the pause before the last movement of this walk. He gives the ridge its due. It has given him something tonight, something he will not have words for in the morning perhaps, but that he will feel in the way he moves, in the way he reaches for things, in the slightly different angle at which he meets the world. He gives it a moment of simple acknowledgement. Then he puts his hands against the ground and pushes himself to standing. His knees register the cold of the ground as he stands, a stiffness in the joints from the sitting, from the cold, from the years. He stands straight, rolls his shoulders once. The wind meets him again at full height, and his face turns into it instinctively, seeking the full version of it, the cold and the salt and the open reach of it, and he stands with the wind on his face for a moment, with his eyes closed again, not in tiredness, but in the deliberate savoring of a thing he knows is good. Then he turns toward the path. It continues from the ridge's crest down the far side of the hill, descending into the valley below in a long, gentle switchback. He can see it, just barely, in the starlight, as a lighter thread against the darker ground, narrow, deliberate, the path of someone who knew exactly where they were going and did not waste motion. He begins to descend. The ground on the far side of the ridge is different from the ground on the near side. The wind-exposed grass gives way to a more sheltered slope, and as he descends, the vegetation thickens slightly. The grass is taller and less sparse, and then small scrubby bushes begin to appear along the path's edge. The cold is less absolute here, sheltered from the west wind by the ridge itself. He can feel the temperature difference with each step down, the ridge's sharp cold softening into something more like the gentle cool of a protected valley, the air less stripped, more inhabited by the smells of growing things. The path takes him down in long curves. He follows each curve without hurry. His boots find the ground with the assurance of feet that have been walking long enough tonight to trust themselves. There is a confidence in the step that was not there at the beginning of the path, in the village, when the way was unfamiliar, and each footfall carried a small note of uncertainty. Now the feet know what they are doing. The body has found its pace. He is walking with the particular ease of someone who has been walking for a long time and has stopped thinking about walking and has simply become the walk. The valley below comes slowly into view. It is a gentle valley, two hillsides that come together at a shallow angle, the bottom broad rather than narrow, the kind of valley made by a river that has been there a long time and has been patient with the hillsides and they with it. There is a river. He can hear it before he can see it, the same quality of moving water he has been hearing in various forms since the brook, but deeper voiced now, more assured. The sound of a river that has been a river long enough to know what it is. And the valley floor is, he cannot quite see it, but there is a quality to the darkness there that suggests openness, gentleness, not the darkness of a forest or a tight ravine, the darkness of a broad field or a meadow, a darkness that has room in it. He continues down. The stars above him are the same stars. The sea is behind him now, beyond the ridge. Ahead is the valley and the river, and the gate that the map placed at the end of the dotted path in the hollow of the hillside, where the valley begins to narrow at its far end. He is not thinking about what the gate means. He is not trying to solve it. He is simply walking toward it the way you walk toward a light in the distance. When you are tired and the light is warm and you do not need to know whose light it is to know that it is the right direction to walk. The last of the ridge slope levels beneath his feet. He is in the valley. Your eyes are closed, or nearly closed. Whether you have been following him down the ridge or whether you drifted somewhere earlier, in the forest perhaps, or on the bridge, or in the still middle of the field, it does not matter. The story is continuing. It continues whether you are watching it or not, the way the river continues whether anyone is listening. You are breathing very slowly now. The room around you is the same room it has always been, familiar and dark and safe. Your body is as settled as it has been all night, heavier now, warmer now. The surface beneath you no longer something you are lying on, but simply part of the world, continuous with it, as the ground is continuous with everything that stands on it. You do not need to follow every step. You do not need to follow any step. The path knows where it goes. You can let Elian carry it from here, down into the valley, along the river, toward the gate at the end of the path. He is not in a hurry. He has never been in a hurry. And the gate is not going anywhere. Let the valley hold him, and let the room hold you, and let the night do what it has always done, which is to be large and dark and full of stars and utterly foundationally safe in all its largeness and all its darkness. The longing that you carry, the one you may not have named, the one that surfaces at sunsets and at the last notes of certain music and at the faces of people you love in unguarded moments. It is not a wound. It is a map, and you are further along it than you know. Rest now. The gate is ahead, and it is open. The valley has a smell. He notices it the moment his feet reach the level ground. A smell distinct from the ridge, from the forest, from the field that preceded the trees. The valley has been gathering its own air down here between its sheltering hillsides, and the air it has gathered is warmer than anything he has walked through tonight by several degrees at least, and carries in it the particular complexity of a place where water and soil and growing things have been in long conversation. Rich, deeply green, though he cannot see the green in the dark, the smell of aliveness accumulated over time. He breathes it in slowly. There is something about the smell of a valley's floor in the middle of the night, that is deeply, unreasonably comforting, as though comfort were built into the chemistry of it, as though the nose, before any thought, before any interpretation, simply recognizes this particular combination of elements as safe, as known, as belonging to the category of things that welcome rather than warn. He walks into it. The path on the valley floor is different from any path he has walked tonight. It is wider here, wide enough for two people perhaps, or for a person and a laden cart, and the surface has a particular quality of having been worn by use over a very long period. The earth compressed to a fine, dense consistency that his boots meet with a muffled solidity. No cobblestones, no loose soil, no exposed rock. just the specific flat firmness of a path that has been walked so many times and for so long that it has become almost like stone in its character, without being stone. The path of long intention. On either side of the path, he can sense rather than see the valley's vegetation, the suggestion of tall grass, of bushes, of the river vegetation that grows in the margins between the path and the water. The river is close. He can hear it with clarity now, a steady, assured sound, lower and more various than the brook, a river that knows its route, that has taken this valley in its own particular way for a very long time and shows no interest in alternatives. He finds it at a bend. The path comes briefly alongside the river here, and in the starlight the water is visible as a dark movement, the surface catching and releasing light with each ripple, each shift of the current over whatever lies beneath. He can see the pale glint of stones in the shallower margins, and the deeper, unglinting darkness of the channel's center, where the water is moving with its full weight and gives back nothing to the sky. He does not stop, but he slows, walking alongside the river, attending to it. The sound of it fills the valley from bank to bank, not loud, not overwhelming, but omnipresent in the way that water sound is omnipresent when you are close to it, filling all the available quiet, leaving no silence, but also not intruding on thought. It is one of those sounds that the mind accepts as background almost immediately. The way the sea becomes background, the way rain becomes background, present, continuous, not requiring attention but available to it. He lets it be background. His mind is quieter now than it has been at any point tonight. Quieter, in fact, than he can recently account for. There is a specific quality to the quiet that is different from the emptiness of distraction or the blankness of fatigue. It is a clarity, a clarifying, the way a path through a forest clarifies when the trees finally begin to part, and there is open space ahead, not because anything has been removed, but because what was always there has come into focus. He has been thinking about the gate, not strategically, not the way he would approach a professional problem, not inventorying what he knows, assembling arguments, preparing conclusions, more the way you think about something you are walking toward when you are close enough to feel it drawing you forward, a kind of anticipatory attention, the thing not yet seen but increasingly present in the sensing, in the body's forward lean, in the slight quickening that is not hurry but is its neighbor. The river curves away to the right and the path continues straight, leading him slightly upward along the valley's far end where the hillsides close in and the ground begins to rise. He can feel the valley narrowing around him, the sheltering walls coming closer on both sides, the sky above narrowing to a broader corridor rather than the open expanse of the ridge. Cozier, more enclosed, not claustrophobic, not in this night air with this smell, with the river's voice still audible behind him, more like entering a room after being outside, the specific comfort of walls. The path rises gently, and then he sees it. It is at the crest of the shallow rise, set into a low stone wall that runs across the valley from hillside to hillside, a boundary marker of some kind, old enough that the wall itself has become part of the landscape, its stones dark with lichen, thick with the accumulated biography of seasons. The wall is perhaps chest high, and in the wall Centered in the path's continuation is the gate. It is a simple gate. He does not know why he expected otherwise. He has been carrying this image, the small symbol from the map, his own notation for a gap in a wall, a threshold, a passable point, for the entire walk without examining what it might look like when he arrived. And now he is here, and it is simple. A low wooden gate set between two stone posts that have been in the ground long enough to have settled at a slight angle away from each other, leaning outward the way old things lean. The wood of the gate is gray with age and with the particular weathering of something that has been exposed to years of the valley's weather. Rain and cold and the slow bleaching work of many summers. The iron latch is dark with use. The gate is open, not ajar, not slightly, tentatively, uncertainly open, fully open, standing open against the stone wall on the left side of the path where it has been swung and left. The way a gate is left when whoever went through it knew they were expected to return or knew that others were expected to follow. He stops in front of it. His stopping is not hesitation. It is the natural pause of someone at a threshold, the instinctive pause that happens at every significant border, the moment between here and there, when you allow yourself to be in neither place fully, when you occupy the doorway itself and acknowledge it as a real position in the world. He has stood in many doorways. He has always paused in them. He looks through the gate. Beyond it, the path continues into the valley's final reach, and here the darkness is different from the darkness on this side of the wall. Not dramatically so, not in any way that he could photograph or measure, but perceivable, a quality of the air and the light and the atmosphere that is distinct from the valley he has been walking through, a softness to it, as though the darkness on the far side of the gate is the darkness of a room rather than the darkness of open ground, contained, warmed by something he cannot identify, and the light. There is, at the far end of the path beyond the gate, at the place where the valley seems to open again into something broader, a quality of light that should not be here at this hour. Not the light of morning. Morning is many hours away, by any calculation he could make. Not moonlight, because there is no moon tonight that he has seen. Not torchlight or lamplight or any light that has a source he can locate. Just light, the soft, sourceless, directionally ambiguous light of the last moments before dawn, when the sky has not yet turned but something in the air has changed, something in the light's quality has shifted, as though the darkness itself is beginning to thin from within. The gold-green light of a world that is quietly preparing itself to be seen. The light that turns the edges of things gentle, that makes shadows soft rather than sharp, that gives the grass a faint luminosity, that makes the air between things visible as a medium, rather than as an absence. He stands at the open gate and looks at this light. He has seen the light before dawn. He has seen it from headlands and from ships and from the windows of foreign rooms in many countries over the course of a long working life. He knows its particular character. He knows the quality it gives to things, the way it makes them present without harshness, the way it makes the world look, briefly, in those few minutes, like it has just been made, like it is still being made. The light beyond the gate has that quality. But it is not dawn here. It cannot be dawn here. He has lost track of time on this path, but he has not lost track of the darkness. The stars are still at their full brightness above him. The night still entirely itself. Dawn is not coming. Not yet. And yet, the light is there. Soft and patient and entirely without urgency. The way light is when it knows it has all the time it needs. The gold-green light touching the grass of the valley beyond the gate, touching the stones of the path, touching the air itself until the air has warmth in it and a faint color, a faint suggestion of the spectrum, as though something is quietly suggesting that beauty is not only possible here, but inherent, structural, built into the nature of the place, rather than added to it. He puts his hand on the gate post. The stone is different from the cold of the bridge stones, from the cold of the ridge. It is not cold at all, this stone. It is simply the temperature of itself. Stone, in a place that has been sheltered and mild and held in the arms of these two hillsides, long enough to have come to its own comfortable understanding with the temperature of things. Not warm by any dramatic measure, simply not cold. The absence of cold as a presence in itself. He stands with his hand on the post and he looks through the gate at the light. And the feeling that has been his companion his whole life, the longing, the compass, the needle that would not point backward, is present now in its fullest possible form, not aching, not grasping, not straining forward with any quality of desperation or urgency, simply present and full and oriented, the way water is oriented when it has found the direction of its own flowing and is simply flowing in it, neither resisting nor efforting, simply moving in the direction that is its own. He is here. He does not step through the gate tonight. He knows this, not as a rule imposed from outside, not as a prohibition, not as a limitation, simply as the knowledge that this moment, this standing at the threshold, is itself complete, is the thing, not a frustrating almost, not a door slammed at the last moment, but an arrival of a different kind than walking through would have produced. An arrival at the threshold, which is its own place, its own full position in the world. He is at the gate, and the gate is open, and that is everything. There is no word for what he feels standing here. He has spent a long time in his life being dissatisfied with the unavailability of words for this particular feeling, has spent decades trying to coax language toward it and watching language fall short. He is no longer dissatisfied. He has arrived at the understanding, which comes slowly and only after long acquaintance with the limits of language, that there is no failure in the inability to name certain things, that some things are not wordless because they are vague or confused or insufficiently examined, but because they are too precise for words, because words are general and this is specific, the specific thing itself, irreducible and untranslatable and simply, completely, what it is. This is what it is. He stands at the open gate in the gold-green light, and he knows, with the body knowledge that does not require argumentation or evidence, that this is what the longing has always been pointing toward. Not this specific gate in this specific valley, not this particular night or this particular walk or this particular old cartographer standing with his hand on a gate post, But the quality of this, the condition this represents, being here, being at the threshold of something large, not outside it, not the stranger at the window, not the passerby who hears the music through the wall and cannot get inside it. Here, at the gate, with the gate open. And the gate is open because it was always open. And it was always open because the opening was not his to earn or force or find. The opening was already accomplished, already the state of things, already done before he arrived, already done before he knew he was walking toward it, the door on which he has been knocking all his life. He was never locked out. He was simply not yet arrived. And here, now, standing in the valley with the light beyond the gate, touching the air and the stones and the grass with its patient, sourceless warmth, here is the knowledge that the longing was never a wound, was never the symptom of something gone wrong, something missing, something he had failed to locate or failed to hold. The longing was the first form of the welcome. It was the welcome arriving before he did, carried backward through time to find him at every beautiful and resonant moment of his life, in every lit window, every last note, every autumn morning, every face turned away and luminous in its unknowing, every one of those moments, the welcome, every ache, the greeting, every incompleteness, not the evidence of exclusion, but the form that inclusion takes when the destination is still ahead and the journey is the only language available. He was always expected. That is the thing. He was always expected. Not in the way of being owed something, not in the entitled sense of expectation, but in the way a place holds a space for you before you arrive, the way a host prepares a room before the guest comes, the way the morning begins its preparation in the dark of the night before anyone has asked it to. He was always expected. He has been on his way here his whole life. He stands with his hand on the gatepost, and the tears that come are not grief. He knows grief. He knows precisely the temperature and the quality of grief's tears, has known it at bedsides and on ships and in the silence after certain phone calls. These are not those. These are the tears that come at the end of a very long walk when you finally see the light of home across the fields. These are the tears of recognition, of arrival. He does not wipe them. He lets them do what they do, which is to be evidence of something felt at the full depth of the feeling. The way certain music requires a physical response, because the feeling exceeds what the body can hold in stillness. And this is not weakness, but proportion. He is proportionate to what is happening. His body is telling the truth about the size of the moment. He breathes. The air beyond the gate carries something. He can feel it even here, even on this side of the threshold. A warmth that is not the warmth of temperature, but the warmth of a quality in the air, of something in the atmosphere that meets the skin differently from ordinary air. Not with resistance, with something closer to recognition. The air on the far side of the gate is the air of a place that has been waiting with the specific patience of something that has no doubt about the outcome. He stands inside that feeling for a long time. There is no sound from beyond the gate. Not silence, exactly. Something fuller than silence. The fullness that comes before sound rather than after it. The fullness of a held breath, of a world gathering itself. He has the sense, without seeing it, without any evidence he could point to, of a vastness on the far side of the valley's end. A vastness that the narrow valley has been holding back, the way a canyon holds back the ocean on the other side of the continent, and the canyon is not the limit of the world, but only the first thing you can see of it. Beyond the gate is not more valley. Beyond the gate is something for which valley is the preparation, the approach, the first word of a sentence, whose full length he cannot see from here. He does not need to see it tonight. He does not need to walk through tonight. He will. He knows that he will, with the same unargued certainty with which the body knows things that precede and outlast reason. He will walk through this gate. Not tonight, perhaps not in any night that the calendar would record or that anyone who knows him would observe. But the walking through is as settled as anything has ever been settled, as certain as the movement of the tide, which does not require supervision or approval, or the accumulated will of anyone watching. It simply happens in its time, as it was always going to happen. He is not afraid. He has not been afraid of this for a long time. Not since the fear was replaced, slowly and without his quite noticing, by something he did not have a name for until this moment. The fear was replaced by this, by what he is feeling now, a readiness that is not impatience, a willingness that is not resignation, a quiet, forward-facing openness that has been building in him through all the years and all the coastlines and all the evenings he stood somewhere beautiful and felt the signal arrive without understanding what it was signaling. This is what it was signaling. He has always been on his way to this gate. He lifts his hand from the post. He looks through the gate one more time, at the light, at the path continuing into the soft gold green of that sourceless illumination, at the grass luminous and unhurried, at the air between things visible and warm, at the vastness he can sense beyond the valley's end. He holds it all in his vision for a moment, the way you hold the face of something you love when you know you're about to turn away from it, not in grief, not in finality, but in the completeness of the beholding, giving it its full due. He sees it. He has seen it. And then, with all the unhurried ease of a man who knows where he is and where he is going and trusts the path between them completely, he turns away from the gate. He turns back toward the valley, back toward the river, back toward the ridge above and the forest below it, and the field and the bridge and the village with its amber windows, and the path climbing to the cottage above the sea where the candle is burning on his work table and the map is waiting. He begins to walk home. The walk back is different. It is the same path in the same night with the same body wearing the same boots. But everything a walk back is different from the walk toward. The same way a piece of music heard a second time is not the same experience as the first hearing, because you carry the knowledge of where it goes, and the carrying of that knowledge changes how you hear everything that comes before. He walks back through the valley with the river voice beside him and the hills above him and the stars overhead, and everything is familiar now. Not in the false familiar way of déjà vu, which is a misfiring, a mistake of the mind, but in the true familiar way of a place that has become, through walking, your own. He has walked this valley tonight. His footsteps are in the compressed earth of the path. The valley has received him, and he has received the valley, and there is a mutuality in that which is its own kind of knowing. He passes the place where he left the river, and the river continues on its own business, indifferent to the direction of his travel, running always in one direction, finding always the same level, patient as gravity. He begins the rise toward the ridge. His legs know the climb now. The body has mapped this route as all bodies map routes they have traveled. Through the small adjustments of muscle and weight and balance that accumulate into something that can feel like memory without being memory in the conscious sense. His body knows the slope. His feet know the transition from valley floor to ridge approach. He climbs without efforting, the long, gentle switchback unwinding in reverse beneath him. The ridge arrives. He crests it, and the sea appears again below and to the south, unchanged, vast and dark and faintly luminous with its scattered starlight, patient as it has been all night, patient as it was before he came and will be after he has gone. He does not stop this time. He pauses. One breath, one moment of simple acknowledgement, one recognition of the sea as the thing it is. And then he descends the near side of the ridge toward the forest. The forest receives him back with the particular quality that forests have of receiving. Not welcoming exactly, not in any animated or directed sense, but accommodating, making room. The trees part for the path, and the path is there, and the soft floor is underfoot, and the smell of old oak surrounds him again, and he walks into it the way you walk back into any place you have come to know, without ceremony, with the simplicity of belonging. He looks for the night flower and cannot find it by sight. The darkness is the same. The path is the same, but it is there in the air, still, very faint now, or perhaps simply familiar enough that he perceives it differently. Not with the pause of encountering something unexpected, but with the ease of something recognized. The scent of something he now knows is ahead of him, not behind. He passes through the forest. He crosses the bridge. The brook below is unchanged, still working its way over its stones with the same busy, purposeful variousness, still making the same particular sound that has no single word for it. He pauses this time and puts his hands on the coping stones, lets the cold of them come into his palms again, and he listens to the brook for a moment with the full attention he has been developing all night. The attention that does not analyze but simply receives, that does not try to hold but allows itself to be moved through. The brook speaks in its own language. He listens. He does not translate. He simply hears. He lifts his hands and walks on. The field receives him. The long grass waves in the same slow foundational motion as before. The wind has not changed, or if it has changed in some way too gradual to detect in a single night. He walks through the grass with the stars above and the village lights below and the particular piece of a body that has walked far enough to have settled into its own movement, to have found the rhythm that is specific to that body's particular engagement with the specific ground beneath it. He descends toward the village. The village lights are there as he left them, amber and warm, small against the dark, holding their positions in the hillside with the assurance of things that have been here a long time. He enters through the far side of the square, past the stone basin with its sky reflection, through the main street and its cobblestones, the window where the woman sat at her table. He passes it. The lamp is still lit inside. She's no longer visible. The room beyond the glass is simply a lit room now, ordinary and warm, doing what rooms do at night when the people inside them have gone to rest. He walks through the village. He does not stop. The cobblestones carry him up through the houses and out the far side, and the path climbs and the village falls behind him, and the sea smell comes in stronger as he rises. The smell of his sea now. His specific salt, his particular harbor below the cliff. The smell he has stopped consciously registering after years of having it as the first breath of every morning and the last breath of every night. He climbs the cliff-top path, and there is the cottage. It sits on its promontory exactly as he left it. The low stone walls, the slated roof, the dark windows on 3 sides, and on the near side, the warm amber rectangle of the work table window with the candle still burning inside. He has been gone. How long? He has no way of measuring it. Long enough for the walk and the ridge and the gate and the valley. Long enough for everything that has happened to have happened. And yet the candle is still burning. It is burning low. He can see this from outside. The light slightly less steady than it was. The kind of small flickering that belongs to a candle in its last hour. But it is burning, and its light fills the window with a particular warmth that is, above all other lights, the light of inside. He opens the door. The cottage smells of itself, of the old wood and the cold hearth and the salt air that has come in through 30 years of living, in a place with thin old walls and a gap under that door, and of the paper. Always the paper, the iron and time smell of the maps stacked and rolled on the shelves. He steps inside and the floor accepts his weight with its familiar sound. The boards know him, know the particular landing of his particular step, and speak it back to him in the voice he has been hearing for 30 years. He closes the door behind him. The work table is as he left it, the candle in its holder with its mote of melted wax, the map, the small map from the journal, on the corner of the table where he placed it, the pale shell that is his paperweight, the crack in the plaster that travels from the window frame toward the ceiling in its patient, unhurried line. He crosses to the table. He sits down in his chair. The chair receives him with the worn familiarity of furniture that has long since adjusted to a specific body. The seat compresses in exactly the right places. The back meets his back at exactly the right angle. The arms are at exactly the right height for his arms to rest on without effort. He has sat in this chair for 30 years of evenings. The chair has the full record of him in its materials. He looks at the map. The candlelight falls on it as it has been falling all night, warming the pale paper to amber, catching the slight texture of the surface, making the ink lines visible as the fine, deliberate markings of a hand that paid attention. He looks at the dotted path running from the coast through the forest to the ridge and down into the valley. He looks at the small symbol at the path's end, his own notation for a gate, his own handwriting, his own hand that drew this before he knew what it was drawing. He reaches out and places his palm on the map, not lightly this time, fully. the full weight of his hand on the full surface of the paper, the slight warmth of the map through his palm, the warmth accumulated from the candle's proximity, from the hours of being near the light. He sits like that for a long moment. He thinks about the gate. He thinks about the light beyond it, the gold-green, sourceless light, the pre-dawn warmth of a place perpetually preparing itself for morning. He thinks about the open gate and the path continuing and the vastness he could sense at the valley's far end. He thinks about the feeling that is not grief and is not merely happiness and is not anything that a simpler life would have given him the occasion to feel. He thinks about the longing, all the years of it, all the sunsets and last notes and lit windows and unguarded faces, all the cliff tops he stood on with the specific ache present in him and no language for it, all the times he called it nostalgia, pointed it backward, looked for the thing in his past that it was supposed to be mourning and found nothing there. Not backward, forward, always forward, the pointing, always ahead of him, the thing it was signaling, always open, the gate, always prepared, the room, always expected, the traveler. The ache was the welcome, arriving before he did. He exhales slowly, the kind of exhalation that is the body completing something, not a sigh of resignation, not the deflation of disappointment, but the deep, settling breath of a task accomplished, of a journey reached at its proper end, of a question resolved not by being answered in the way questions usually want to be answered, but by being transformed, turned gently over until the question itself becomes the answer, until the longing itself becomes the understanding of what the longing was for. He is known, not by the cottage, not by the chair, not by the map under his hand. These are not the scale of the knowing he means. He is known by something he does not have a name for, has never had a name for, has mapped the edges of all his life without being able to name the center. Something that was there in the night flower's scent and the brook's voice and the cold of the bridge stones and the stars in their patient places and the light at the far end of the valley. Something that arranged all of it, arranged it or inhabited it, or was it, he cannot say which. The distinctions begin to blur at this depth. Something that knows him, not in the way of a file or a record, not in the flat transactional way of being documented, but in the deep way of being cared for, of mattering, of being the specific, unrepeatable, particular person that he is. Not a type, not a category, not a human being in the general sense, but Elian, with his backward-leaning capital letters and his 30 years of maps, and his love of bridges and his lifelong inability to say what the longing was pointing toward. Known, he has never felt this before, or he has always felt it. He is not sure the distinction holds at this hour, in this candlelight, with the map warm under his palm. The candle flame leans, the draft again, the gap under the door, the one he has meant to seal for 3 years. He has known this draft for 30 years. It is one of the cottage's signatures, along with the sound of the floorboard and the crack in the plaster and the smell of old paper and salt. He does not resent it. It has always been here. It is part of the record of this place, and the place is part of the record of him, and he is not separate from any of it. He looks at the flame. The candle has perhaps 20 minutes left. half an inch of wax remaining above the pooled melt. He has sat at this table through the burning of many candles in 30 years. He knows what 20 minutes of candle looks like, what it feels like, the particular quality of light it produces as the flame begins to travel closer to the metal of the holder, and the light changes its color very slightly, moving toward amber from gold, the warmth of it intensifying just before it ends. He is ready. He says this to himself without drama. He is ready. Not for something specific, not for the gate tonight or any particular tomorrow. Ready in the broader sense, the sense that means oriented, facing the right direction at last, walking along the path that was always his path, with the knowledge now of where the path ends, and finding that the knowledge does not produce urgency or anxiety or any of the rushing that he might have expected from such a realization. It produces rest. That is what it produces, the deepest rest he can remember, not the rest of exhaustion, though he is tired, the good tired of long walking, but the rest of things settled, the rest that comes when a long confusion has resolved, not into simple answers, but into a clarity that is itself a kind of peace. The rest of a man who has spent his whole life carrying a compass he did not know how to read, and has finally, late in a long life, on a night full of cold air and water sounds and the smell of things he cannot name, understood the direction it was pointing. He lifts his hand from the map. He takes the map and folds it, gently, carefully, along the same folds it was in before he found it, the paper yielding along the same lines, following its own memory. He folds it back to its small size and places it inside the journal, closes the journal, sets it at the edge of the table where the candle's light falls at its most steady. He will look at it again in the morning. He already knows it differently than he did this evening. In the morning, it will be a map of a place he knows now, a place he has walked, a place that is real in the way that all places we have truly inhabited are real, not because they are on any official record, not because anyone else can verify them, but because we have been there with our full attention and our full senses, and something in us was altered by the going. He looks around the room, the shelves with their scrolled maps, the cedar chest under the window, the low coals in the hearth, barely orange now, the last of the evening's fire breathing its final breaths, the pale shell on the table, the crack in the plaster, the window to the right of the work table through which the night outside is entirely dark. No moon, just darkness and the particular quality of absence that means the sea is there, invisible, enormous, doing what it always does. He has lived in this room for 30 years and tonight he sees it differently. Not better, not worse. Differently, with the addition of something that was not available to him before tonight, and that changes the way everything he looks at appears, the way a change in light changes an entire landscape, without altering a single stone or blade of grass within it. Everything the same, and everything, in the light of what has happened tonight, somehow more itself, more fully what it is, the shell more shell, the plaster crack more precisely and perfectly the specific crack it is, the specific record of these specific walls settling over the specific years of their cohabitation. There are no ordinary things. He has known this intellectually, in the way that one can know things before knowing them. Known it from years of paying careful attention to the world, from years of trying to render coastlines with accuracy, from the unavoidable discovery that accuracy requires an escalating attention that eventually arrives at the realization that nothing is adequately described, that everything looked at with sufficient care exceeds description, that even the most mundane stretch of coastline contains, at sufficient magnification, an infinite amount of detail. He knows it differently now. Not intellectually, in the full body. There are no ordinary people, and there are no ordinary things. In the ordinary moments of ordinary days, a woman at a table under a lamp, a brook working over its stones, a candle burning through the last hour of an evening, are not ordinary at all, have never been ordinary, are in fact charged with a weight and a brightness that exceeds anything we could claim to have put there. The weight of what they are, the brightness of being real. He is very tired, the good tired, the long walked far gone, clear arrived tired of someone who has been somewhere important and come back and is now in their chair at the end of it, and the chair knows them, and the room knows them. And it is late, and there is nothing more required tonight. He reaches out and pinches the candle, not blowing. He has always pinched candles rather than blown them, an old habit from decades of working over papers that a blown candle could have scattered. He pinches the wick between his thumb and forefinger, and the flame goes out with a small, clean extinction, and the room is not dark. The coals in the hearth still breathe their faint orange, but the working light is done. The map is on the table. The room is quiet. The sea is below the cliff, patient as it has always been, doing what it has always done, in the dark, without needing to be witnessed. Elian sits in the warm dark of his cottage and feels, settling through him like the first warmth of a fire after coming in from the cold, something that he will not try to name. It is too precise for naming. It is the specific thing, the unreduced thing, the thing itself. He knows where the gate is. He knows it has always been open. He knows what the longing was pointing toward. And he knows, with the same unargued certainty with which he has known the most important things in his life, that he is not lost, has never been lost, has been walking the right path all along in the company of something patient and warm and enormously kind, toward a destination that was prepared before he set out, that will be there when he arrives, that has been holding the door open all this time and will hold it open as long as is needed. He closes his eyes. The cottage is around him. The coals are warm. The map is near. He is home. And now, here in this room, in this quiet, at this late hour, you have been somewhere tonight. Perhaps you followed every step, the village, and the bridge, and the forest, and the ridge, and the valley, and the gate with its open latch and the light beyond it, gold green and patient and sourceless. Perhaps you drifted somewhere earlier and let the story carry on without you, the way a river carries on whether you are watching it or not. Either way, something has traveled. Something always travels in the listening. Something in you has been in the night air, on the ridge, at the edge of the forest, hearing the sound of moving water in the dark. Something has stood at the gate. You know the gate. You have always known the gate. Not this one, not Elian's valley, not his low stone wall with its weathered posts. Your version, the specific configuration that the longing has taken in your life, in the particular quality of certain evenings, in the last notes of certain music, in the faces of people you love, in the moments. They are not performing anything, simply being there, luminous in their unknowing. That ache, you have carried it. I do not know for how long, or in what form, or what you have called it when you have needed to give it a name. I only know that you carry it because everyone carries it, because it is the most honest and most human thing we have. This inconsolable, beautiful, sourceless desire for something we cannot identify and cannot stop wanting. It is not a wound. It is not a wound. It is a map, the oldest kind, drawn not on paper, but inside you, in the specific language of longing, using as its ink every beautiful and resonant thing you have ever encountered, every lit window and last note and October afternoon and unguarded face. And it does not point backward. It has never pointed backward, though we have tried so many times to make it face that direction. There is no loss to locate there, no specific morning to recover, no earlier arrangement of the world that would satisfy this wanting. The wanting has no object in the past. The past is not where it belongs. It points forward. It points, always, toward the gate, and the gate has always been open. You were never the stranger outside the window. You were never the wrong person in the wrong place, locked out of something that everyone else had access to. You were the expected guest, always, the one the room was prepared for, the one the light was left on for, the traveler who was already known before they knocked. The ache you have carried is not grief for something lost. It is the sound of where you are going, carried backward through time to find you. Every longing, every reaching, every moment when the beauty of the world exceeded your ability to hold it, and you felt the particular ache of that excess. Not too much, but almost enough. A little less than what is coming, a first draft of what will be fully said. You are further along the path than you know. You have been walking it your whole life, and the gate is open. You do not need to reach it tonight. You do not need to reach for anything tonight. You have done enough. You have walked far. You have paid attention in the ways you have known how to pay attention, in the years you have had with the instruments available to you. You have lived your life with whatever care you could bring to it. And all of that, the care and the inattention, the clear days and the clouded ones, the long walks and the times you did not walk at all of it has been the path. All of it has been the making of the map. None of it has been wasted. Not a step. You can lay the map down now. It will be there in the morning. The direction it points will not change overnight. The gate will not close. The path will not reroute. Everything that is true tonight will be true in the morning, and there is time. There is enough time for all the walking that remains. But tonight, there is only this room, this quiet, this dark behind your eyes, this slow, even breathing that your body has settled into without your management, the way everything that knows what it is doing eventually settles into its own best rhythm. This rest. Let your body be heavy. Let your mind be still. Let the valley be where it is, and the gate be open, and the light be there, gold green and patient, and let all of it continue without you for now, because it will. Because it does. Because the world does not need your attention to be what it is. You are expected. You are known. You are not lost. And you are very nearly home. Rest now. The story continues without sound for a time. The cottage is quiet. The coals have faded. Outside, the sea moves in the dark below the cliff as it has moved all night, patient and continuous, neither asking for your attention nor withdrawing when you give it. There is nothing required of you. Nothing at all. Only this. Only rest. If you are still here, and it does not matter if you are, it does not matter at all. But if you are still here, at the surface of sleep, rather than below it, still in the room with one hand on the door, then hear this. You have done enough tonight. You have been enough. You have brought enough attention and enough care and enough of yourself to this day and to every day before it. And the accounting, if there is one, and I believe there is, the accounting is not against you. Whatever the longing has been asking, you do not need to answer it tonight. You can lay it down with the same gentleness that Elian laid the map on the table, carefully, with both hands, in the full knowledge that it will be there in the morning, and that morning is coming, and that between here and there is only this dark, this warmth, this slow breathing. This room, which is yours, which is safe, which has held you before and holds you now and will hold you through every hour of this night until the morning comes, as it always comes, as it has come every morning of your life without a single exception. The morning is coming. You do not need to go to meet it. It will find you here, and in the morning there will be light on whatever you see first when you open your eyes. Ordinary light, coming through wherever light comes from in this room, falling on whatever it falls on. And that light will be the same light that was in the valley beyond the gate, the same quality in different measure, the same sourceless warmth wearing the ordinary face of morning. It is always the same light. You have been seeing it your whole life. Rest now. The path is not finished, but tonight the walking is done. The gate is open. You are expected. You are known. And you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Let yourself go below the surface of this. Let the words dissolve the way a voice dissolves after it has said what it came to say. There is nothing more needed. There is only the dark and the warmth and your own slow breath. Rest here as long as you need. The story is complete. Elian is in his chair. The map is on the table. The gate is open in the valley, and the light is there on the far side of it, as it will be there tomorrow and in all the tomorrows. Patient and warm and entirely without urgency. Sleep now. You are home.